Well, it's not a long way, it's 160 odd k's out of town, but it's well worth the trip. Nyungar Homestead on Baladonia Track. It's a homestead which got restored by work for the Dole teams, I think about 10-15 years ago. They put the roof back on and it's quite functional if you want to stay there for a night or two. Oh my goodness. I love coming out here, and I guess this time it's been really nice to come out with a book by a local author, John Bridges, called Challenging Isolation, and it deals with all the history of the area. So it talks about the various homesteads and the families which lived out here in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and seeing the homesteads in conjunction with that history has been really good.
Memory of John Paul Brooks, gentleman, pioneer, pastoralist, geographer. He had a good innings.
This is really spooky.
Some of them are in better state of repair than others. It's hard to imagine living out here back in the day. I mean, it's a pretty harsh environment even today, but yeah, 100 years ago it would have been completely different again. We stopped for a lunch break and you found it, Dan. Well done. That's full grown though. Only get to sort of 5 to 6 centimetres long for their nose to their bum, but they're still pretty quick. I always enjoy camping in the woodlands. I find it one of those sort of quintessentially Australian sort of experiences. The places you camp where you've got the big old twisted gum trees and salt bush around and granite headlands. It could be a scene out of a Pro Heart paint. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So quiet, being away from any traffic noise. I think in the last 2.5 days we've seen one other person. But yeah, it's fantastic out here. There's a species of Aeromophila. There's a lot of them along here. They might not have been here for 20, 30 years and they would have just been survived by a seed in the ground. Following on from the last bushfire, they've just come up in abundance. Yeah, spectacular plant, and they'll be here for a couple of years, produce a lot of flowers, a lot of seed, and then disappear from the landscape again. Really got a little sugar taste. A massive bushfire a couple of years ago burnt tens of thousands of hectares of the eastern section of the Great Western Woodlands. The trees don't look very tall here, but they would have been a couple of 100 years old, those ones. So it's not going to look like this again for a long, long time. It's a shame. The woodlands we were travelling through is the eastern section of the largest remaining temperate woodland in the world. So pretty special place with its unique assemblage of flora and fauna, and typically when you wake up in the woodlands you're waking up to the sound of bird song, and it's pretty special. Yeah, very relaxing. On the way from the homesteads back down to Mount Ragged, we stopped in at Pine Hill, which I guess historically was a place of reliable water, which is a massive asset out here because it is such a dry landscape. Pioneers would often stop to water their horses there and their stock, and it had reliable grass, and yeah, I guess it was a place of refuge in a dry landscape.
Be very quiet, we're hunting yabbies. Give them a few minutes. In the meantime, see if we can catch another one by hand. Ah, you fucker! I got him out. Dan, I got him. Only cost me part of my thumb. Quick dip. Go for a swim, what do you reckon? Pine Hill. So who's buried here? They'd be in that book. Whoever they were huge. I mean, look at the size of that grave. So to peel a yabby, crack that open like that, chuck that bit there, take his little spider legs off, chuck them, peel down the back till you can slip him out, smooth as silk, just like that. Yabbies are ready, just need to stick a bit of vinegar on and have a crack. Yeah, not bad. Mount Ragged in Kepa National Park, just under 600 metre peak in the middle of, I guess it's the northeastern part of the park. I believe it's the highest peak in the Esperance area, a bit higher than Peak Charles, which would be the other closest one. Beautiful spot to camp. It's a nice little mountain range and it's a good view from the top. Bit of a rough four-wheel drive track, but big open spaces, isolation. I feel like you've got the whole place to yourself, which you often do. This is Banksia prolata subspecies archeos. It was a dryandra, but all dryandras became Banksias a couple of years ago. So the last name archeos means first light in Latin, and it's because it's the most easterly distribution of this particular plant. There's a beautiful Beaufortia right next to it, which is bright pink, red, pretty spectacular. So these here are a Hakea pandanacarpa. I used to call them cricket ball Hakeas as a kid. Used to snap these off and throw them at my brother. But the true cricket ball Hakeas are actually smooth. They don't have this spiky nut. These Eucalyptus Dorotoxylon, which are spearwood. They sort of grow in a line across the side of the mountain here. You can see them by their white trunks in the distance. Don't know where the common name spearwood came from. They're not that straight that I'd use them for a spear, but maybe when they're younger they are. Who knows? It's not a very high climb, but it's unrelenting in that there's no sort of flat spells or lower gradients. It's just continuously steep. So yeah, you end up a bit puffy and a bit sweaty by the top, but it's well worth it. All right, at the top, went from having no breeze to suddenly a howling sou'easter coming off the ocean, so I've had to clip my hat on. Now I've got a friend of mine who refuses to put rocks on a can. Her tradition is to actually take a rock off the can because it's basically taking away habitat from geckos and things like that, so you get a nice flat rock, right, nice and flat, and leave it there. I disassemble a can rather than put rocks on a can. Speaking of cans, we do have some cans. Pablo, you got some cans? I think we deserve a celebratory beer at the top of Mount Ragged. Bit of a warm afternoon. It's a big old landscape out here, and you can see the coast to the east, so you can see down to Israelite Bay. Apart from that, it's just vegetation all around. Cheers, mate. Oh, that tastes good after that hike. Well, it tastes good anyway. So we've got a little bobtail. People often call these blue tongues because they have a blue tongue, but the blue tongue's got a longer tail and he's a lot smoother scale, whereas this has got quite coarse scales. I find the tragedy with these little guys is they're too often run over on the road. They don't move very quickly. They'd be easy to avoid, yet quite often you see them squashed on the road. The thing about these guys, they often get ticks in their ears, so it doesn't seem too bad actually. They're actually really friendly. I mean, he's relaxed now. If you accidentally get your finger in their mouth, they do not let go, so it does hurt and it leaves a mark. But so I don't recommend that. But if you treat them properly, they're really good. So he's pretty relaxed. Give him a little pat. Set him on his way. Cape Arad National Park is the last remaining wild refuge of the western ground parrot, and they've been decimated pretty much by feral cats, and it's one more species which you wouldn't like to see disappear from the face of the earth, I guess. Okay, we've got a sand monitor, Varanus rosenbergii. It's a decent sized one. Yeah, Dan shit himself. It wasn't a scream, Dan, was it? It wasn't a squeal, it was...
I was like, ah!
Yeah, no, it's called a hero scream. Like it's a scream of victory. It might sound like you're scared, but you really weren't. Areas like this are super important, and super important to look after and value for all of us.